Imagine waking up one morning to find out your own country almost wiped itself off the map. No enemy attack, no warning. Just one small accident, and the end of America as we know it. In 1961, a U.S. Air Force bomber carrying 2 hydrogen bombs, each hundreds of times more powerful than Hiroshima, broke apart over North Carolina. One of those bombs armed itself in midair. 5 of its 6 safety mechanisms failed. Only a single cheap switch, smaller than your pinky, stopped it from detonating. If it had gone off, millions would have died within minutes, and radioactive fallout could have reached Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, even New York City. This isn't a what if. It almost happened. This is the true story of the night the United States accidentally nearly nuked itself, and how pure luck saved the world. It was January 23, 1961, just past midnight in North Carolina. The Cold War was at its peak. The U.S. and the Soviet Union had enough nuclear weapons to destroy the planet several times over, and both sides knew it. To make sure America could strike back if the Soviets attacked first, B-52 bombers loaded with nuclear weapons constantly patrolled the skies, part of a mission called Operation Chrome Dome. One of those bombers, a B-52 Stratofortress, had just taken off from Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in Goldsboro. It carried 2 Mark 39 hydrogen bombs, each with a yield of 3.8 megatons, roughly 260 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. 8 crew members were on board. For them, it was just another long, cold mission. But not long after takeoff, the pilot, Major Walter Tullett, noticed something wasn't right. A red light flashed on the control panel, a fuel leak. At first it seemed minor, but within minutes, the bomber started bleeding fuel at an alarming rate. The crew radioed the base. They were losing thousands of pounds of fuel. They were told to stay airborne until further instructions. But the situation worsened fast. The right wing became unstable, and fuel streamed out into the cold night air. Then came the order: return to base immediately. The crew tried to stabilize the plane, but the leak caused the aircraft to lose control. The right wing broke off, and the B-52 went into a violent spin. At 2 a.m., the bomber broke apart over a quiet North Carolina farm. Witnesses on the ground later said the sky looked like it was burning, pieces of the plane scattering like falling stars. 2 parachutes opened. The rest of the crew never stood a chance. But as the fire rained down, something far more terrifying fell with it. 2 fully armed nuclear bombs, and one of them was seconds away from ending the world. When the bomber tore apart, both hydrogen bombs dropped from the fuselage. Each Mark 39 bomb had 6 safety mechanisms. The idea was simple. If the plane ever crashed or the bomb was accidentally released, those mechanisms would prevent a nuclear explosion. But that night, theory failed. As the first bomb, later called Weapon 1, fell from the disintegrating plane, its parachute deployed. That only happens when a bomb is armed for a real nuclear drop. When recovery teams arrived at the site, they found the bomb hanging from a tree, shockingly intact. But what they saw next froze everyone. 5 of the 6 safety mechanisms had failed. Only one tiny, low-voltage switch, a simple electrical component that cost less than $1, had kept the bomb from detonating. That's not an exaggeration. One engineer later said the bomb went through every step necessary to detonate, except one. If that single switch had flipped, a 3.8 megaton blast would have vaporized everything within an 8-mile radius. Goldsboro would have vanished instantly. The flash would have been seen hundreds of miles away. Fallout would have poisoned the East Coast, contaminating Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, and possibly even New York City. The second bomb hit the ground differently. It fell without a parachute, slamming into a muddy field at 700 miles per hour. It buried itself deep underground and didn't explode. Still, both bombs were on. Both were live. And no one knew whether either might still detonate. The Air Force immediately sealed off the area. Soldiers surrounded local farms. Helicopters swept overhead. Residents were told only that there had been an aircraft accident. They weren't told that 2 hydrogen bombs were lying in their backyards, one of which had come within inches of ending their lives. By dawn, Goldsboro looked like a military invasion zone. Floodlights illuminated acres of farmland, search teams combed the wreckage, and scientists in protective suits examined every fragment of the bomber. They located Weapon 1, the parachuted bomb, relatively quickly. It was armed but intact. Disarming it was painstaking. One wrong move and the entire team would have been vaporized. Hours later, the technicians confirmed it was safe to transport. But Weapon 2, the one that had plunged deep into the field, was another story. It had buried itself almost 20 feet underground, its tail section sticking up from the mud like a twisted metal grave marker. Crews dug through the night, bringing in heavy machinery, but the ground was swampy and unstable. They recovered fragments of the bomb casing, detonators, and electronics. But one critical part, the uranium secondary core, was missing. Without it, the bomb couldn't function. But it was radioactive, and somewhere under the ground. Days turned into weeks. Engineers dug, drilled, and pumped water from the swamp, trying to find the core. But the deeper they went, the more dangerous it became. The ground kept collapsing, threatening to trap the machinery. Finally, the Air Force made a quiet decision. Stop digging. They sealed the hole, bought the land from the local farmer, and declared the site permanently restricted. That piece of the bomb, containing uranium, is still buried there today. For decades, the government denied how close the U.S. had come to disaster. The official story claimed the bombs were unarmed and no danger to the public. But in 2013, a declassified report blew that lie apart. A nuclear weapons engineer named Parker F. Jones, who had worked on the Mark 39's design, wrote that 5 of 6 safety systems had failed, and that only a single switch saved America. His report included one unforgettable line: "We came dangerously close to a major catastrophe." In other words, the United States accidentally almost nuked itself, and then kept it quiet for over 50 years. Let's step into the nightmare that almost became real. If that one switch had failed, the Mark 39 hydrogen bomb would have detonated with a force of nearly 4 million tons of TNT. Ground Zero, Goldsboro, would have been instantly vaporized. Everything within 8 miles would be flattened. The blast radius would have reached Kinston, Wilson, and parts of Raleigh. Temperatures at the center would have reached 10 million degrees Fahrenheit, hotter than the surface of the sun. Within seconds, a firestorm would have engulfed the countryside. Anyone within 20 miles would have suffered lethal burns. But that would have been just the beginning. The radioactive fallout, carried by strong northeast winds that night, would have blanketed the East Coast, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York City, exposing millions to radiation poisoning. Hospitals would have been overwhelmed. Cities evacuated. The American government paralyzed. And here's the terrifying part. The Soviet Union would have seen the detonation and likely assumed it was an attack, triggering a nuclear counterstrike, one mechanical failure, one electrical spark, and the world could have ended. Instead, that $1 switch held, the U.S. quietly cleaned up the wreckage, compensated local farmers, and moved on. No press conference, no public apology. Today, there's a small historical marker by the side of a rural road near Faro, North Carolina. It reads, "Nuclear mishap, 1961. 2 bombs fell from a B-52. No explosion occurred." That's it. A single sentence for one of the closest near apocalypses in human history. Standing there now, you'd never guess that beneath the soil still lies a piece of a hydrogen bomb, sealed off by mud and time, and maybe that's what makes this story so haunting. Because if luck saved us once, there's no guarantee it will again. As one Cold War historian said, we didn't survive because we were careful. We survived because we were lucky. And on that freezing night in 1961, luck, not science, not strategy, kept the United States from destroying itself. If you drive through rural North Carolina today, you'll pass miles of peaceful farmland, cornfields, dirt roads, a few weathered barns. Somewhere beneath that soil, part of a hydrogen bomb still sleeps. The government says it's safe. Locals don't talk about it much. But every once in a while, a Geiger counter ticks a little faster near the old crash site. The Goldsboro incident isn't just a story about a plane crash. It's a reminder that sometimes civilization hangs by the thinnest wire, and on one cold night in 1961, that wire didn't break.